Long before modern fantasy imagined people who could escape death, ancient Chinese writers were telling stories about men and women who had supposedly discovered the secret of immortality. Some were rulers, some were sages, some were physicians, hermits, musicians, or wandering teachers, and some simply disappeared. Their stories were collected in an ancient Chinese work known as the Lie Xian Zhuan, usually translated as the Biographies of Immortals. The collection contains approximately 70 short biographies describing people who were believed to have achieved extraordinary longevity, supernatural abilities, or complete freedom from ordinary human existence. The work was traditionally attributed to Lie Xian, a scholar who lived during the Western Han Dynasty, although modern scholars have questioned whether Lie Xian actually compiled the surviving version of the text. What makes the book unusual is that these are not ordinary biographies. The people described in the Lie Xian Zhuan are said to have crossed a boundary between the human world and something beyond it. Some supposedly lived for hundreds of years. Others disappeared into mountains and were never seen again. Some were said to travel through the heavens, communicate with supernatural beings, or transform themselves. The Chinese concept of an immortal was also different from the modern Western idea of an immortal being. The Chinese Xian was often imagined as a human being who had gradually transformed through spiritual and physical cultivation. Longevity could involve disciplined breathing, diet, meditation, physical exercises, herbal substances, and the cultivation of qi, the vital energy believed to flow through the body. The ultimate goal was not simply to remain young, it was to transcend ordinary human limitations. This idea produced some extraordinary stories. One of the most important themes in the Lie Xian Zhuan is that the secrets of immortality were believed to have existed in the distant past. Ancient sages supposedly knew things that later generations had forgotten. Mountains became places where mysterious hermits could live for centuries. Remote forests and caves became possible entrances to another world, and the oldest rulers of China were sometimes transformed from legendary kings into supernatural beings. Among the most famous figures connected with this tradition was the Yellow Emperor, Huangdi. He was remembered as a legendary ruler and culture hero, but traditions surrounding him eventually portrayed him as someone who had learned the secrets of transformation and escaped ordinary mortality. This idea would become one of the central themes of Chinese Taoist culture. Perhaps humanity did not have to accept death as inevitable. Perhaps the body itself could be transformed. Perhaps somewhere in the mountains, an ancient teacher still possessed the secret. And among all the figures in the Lie Xian Zhuan, one man became the ultimate symbol of that possibility. His name was Peng Zu. He was said to have lived for more than 800 years, and according to the tradition, his extraordinary lifespan was not an accident. Peng Zu supposedly knew techniques for preserving life. His story would become one of the most famous examples of the ancient Chinese search for longevity. One of the most famous figures associated with the immortal tradition was Huangdi, the Yellow Emperor. Huangdi was remembered as a legendary ruler who lived in the distant prehistoric past. Chinese tradition credited him with important discoveries and cultural achievements, but stories about him eventually went far beyond those of an ordinary king. According to immortal traditions, Huangdi eventually discovered the secrets of transformation and achieved immortality. His story became enormously important because it suggested that even a human ruler could transcend the limitations of the human body. Another famous figure was Laozi. Laozi is traditionally regarded as the author of the Tao Te Ching and one of the foundational figures of Taoist philosophy. But in the immortal tradition, Laozi became much more than a philosopher. He was portrayed as a mysterious sage whose wisdom extended beyond ordinary human knowledge. Later traditions described him as a being who could appear in different forms and guide humanity through different ages. The stories surrounding Laozi helped establish an important idea in Chinese thought. Extraordinary wisdom and spiritual cultivation could lead beyond ordinary existence. Closely connected with Laozi was a man named Qin Shi. Qin Shi was said to have been a guardian stationed at a western frontier pass. According to tradition, Qin Shi received a supernatural warning that an extraordinary sage was approaching. Soon afterward, Laozi appeared. Yin Shi recognized that he was in the presence of someone possessing extraordinary wisdom and asked Laozi to record his teachings. The result, according to tradition, was the writing of the Tao De Jing. Yin Shi himself eventually became associated with Taoist spiritual cultivation and immortality, but perhaps no figure represents the ancient Chinese obsession with longevity better than Peng Zu. Peng Zu was traditionally said to have lived for more than 800 years. He was supposedly a descendant of the legendary ruler Xuanzu and lived through multiple ancient dynasties. His extraordinary lifespan was attributed to knowledge that ordinary people did not possess. Peng Zu was said to understand methods of preserving the body's vital energy. In later Chinese tradition, Peng Zu became almost the perfect example of a longevity master. He represented the idea that death might not simply be something that happened to everyone at the same age. Perhaps human beings could learn to delay it. Perhaps the body could be strengthened until it lasted for centuries. And perhaps, with enough knowledge, a person could eventually pass beyond death altogether. According to the ancient tradition, Peng Zu's longevity came at a terrible price. He claimed to have outlived 49 wives and 54 sons. Generation after generation disappeared around him, while Peng Zu continued to live. By the time he was hundreds of years old, he had become a living witness to the deaths of everyone he had once known. Instead, Peng Zu simply disappears into the mystery surrounding the immortals. And that was exactly the appeal of these stories. The immortal was not necessarily someone who defeated death in a dramatic battle. Sometimes immortality meant becoming so elusive that death itself seemed unable to find you. But Peng Zu was not the only figure who supposedly possessed this secret. Another mysterious character was Anqi Sheng. His story would eventually become connected with one of the most famous emperors in Chinese history, an emperor who was so desperate to find immortality that he sent expeditions across the sea searching for supernatural islands. That emperor was Qin Shi Huang. The story of Anqi Sheng is one of the most mysterious in the ancient Chinese tradition because his legend became connected with the first emperor of unified China, Qin Shi Huang. Qin Shi Huang was fascinated by immortality. After unifying China in the 3rd century BC, the emperor became increasingly concerned with his own mortality. According to historical traditions, he sent expeditions into distant regions searching for supernatural beings who supposedly possessed the secret of eternal life. Anqi Sheng was one of the mysterious figures associated with that search. He was described as an immortal who lived in the coastal regions and possessed extraordinary knowledge. According to tradition, Qin Shi Huang encountered him and attempted to persuade him to reveal the secret of immortality. But Anqi Sheng remained elusive. The emperor could command armies, he could build enormous monuments, he could control much of China. But he could not command an immortal to reveal the secret of death. Anqi Sheng too eventually disappeared, leaving the emperor still searching. Another famous figure connected with the immortal tradition was Fan Li. Unlike many of the legendary immortals, Fan Li was based on a historical figure who lived during the Warring States period. He became a successful statesman and strategist in the kingdom of Yue. Fan Li helped his ruler defeat the rival kingdom of Wu. But after achieving political success, Fan Li did something remarkable. He abandoned political power and began a completely different life. According to tradition, he changed his name and became a wealthy merchant. He eventually became known as Tao Ju Gong. Then he abandoned his wealth again. Later stories claim that Fan Li continued appearing under different identities long after he was supposed to have died. His story became associated with the idea that a truly wise person could escape the endless struggle for wealth and power. Instead of remaining trapped in one identity, Fan Li could simply leave it behind. But perhaps the most beautiful story in the immortal tradition belongs to Xiao Shi and Nongyu. Xiao Shi was said to be an extraordinary musician who played the xiao, an ancient Chinese bamboo flute. His music was supposedly so beautiful that he could imitate the sounds of birds. A princess named Nongyu became fascinated by his music. She learned to play the flute from him. Eventually, according to the story, she became so skilled that her music sounded like the call of a phoenix. Then something extraordinary happened. A phoenix supposedly appeared. The ruler was so impressed by the event that he built a special residence for the couple, known as the Phoenix Terrace. Xiao Shi and Nongyu lived there for years. Then, one day, they disappeared. According to the tradition, Xiao Shi rode away on a dragon while Nongyu departed with a phoenix. The two were never seen again as ordinary human beings. Their story became a symbol of spiritual transformation and perfect union. It also demonstrates something important about Chinese immortality stories. Immortality did not always mean living forever as the same person. Sometimes it meant leaving the ordinary human world completely. A person could disappear into the mountains. A musician could fly away with a phoenix. A sage could vanish without leaving a grave. And another story pushed this idea even further. Qin Gao was said to have been a skilled musician and spiritual practitioner who lived during the Warring States period. According to the tradition, Qin Gao announced that he was going to travel beneath the water. His followers waited for him. When the appointed day arrived, people gathered along the shore. Then, according to the story, Qin Gao emerged from the water riding on the back of a huge red carp. He remained visible long enough for the people gathered there to witness him. Then he disappeared beneath the water again. Whether this was meant literally, symbolically, or as a supernatural tale, it became one of the most memorable stories associated with the ancient immortal tradition. The image is extraordinary. A human being disappearing beneath the water and returning on the back of a gigantic fish. It captures the strange world of the Lie Xian Zhuan perfectly. In these stories, mountains, rivers, animals, music, and human beings all seem connected to another realm. The boundary between the natural and supernatural world is constantly disappearing, and the people who crossed that boundary became the immortals.